It was raining the night Carter Hayes sat in the
Here's
lobby of a
$10,000.
five-star hotel,
Be my
his cheap
husband
dress
for a week.
shirt damp at the collar, his hands trembling as he stared out. He was minutes away from signing a predatory loan to save his daughter's life when the elevator doors opened. Adelaide Monroe, a CEO in a red dress, walked straight to his table and placed a stack of cash between them. "Here's $10,000, she said. Be my husband for a week." He looked up, not knowing that one nod would change everything. Adelaide Monroe had built an empire before she turned 35. Monroe Dynamics, a tech finance conglomerate, bore her family's name and her relentless ambition. The press called her the Ice Queen. Shareholders praised her cold precision. Employees feared the click of her heels on marble floors. She wore red bodycon dresses with plunging necklines tailored to intimidate as much as impress. Power was her language. Vulnerability was weakness. But Adelaide Monroe was lonely. She had been raised to believe love was a luxury her family could not afford. Her parents taught her that power was the only currency that mattered. When Henry Cross, a real estate mogul with political connections, proposed to her 3 years ago, she thought she had finally won the game. Then he left her at the altar. In front of 200 guests, 6 television crews, and her entire board of directors, Henry walked away. His parting words echoed in her mind every night. "You don't know how to love anyone but your company." Now at 34, she returned every evening to a penthouse made of glass and silence. The city lights glittered below. The wine was expensive. The art was original. But the only sounds were her heels on hardwood and the hum of her laptop until 3 o'clock in the morning. The board of directors, led by William Grant, the chief financial officer and her father's oldest business partner, was growing impatient. They wanted Adelaide to project stability. They wanted her to appear before the media as a woman who had it all: power, beauty, and a stable family. William suggested she reconcile with Henry Cross. It would be good for the stock price. He said investors trust a power couple. Adelaide hated the idea, but she hated the whispers more. The ones that said she was too cold to love, too ambitious to be human, too broken to be whole. Carter Hayes was 32 years old and exhausted. He worked as a technician, repairing office equipment, delivering packages, installing printers, doing whatever paid enough to keep his daughter alive. His days started at 5 in the morning and ended well past midnight. He fixed copers in downtown high-rises where security guards barely looked at him. He delivered packages in rain and snow, his hands numb, his back aching. He installed printers in law firms where lawyers complained about paper jams while he knelt on expensive carpet, invisible. He had once been a skilled mechanic with dreams of opening his own garage. But those dreams died the day his 7-year-old daughter, Leah, was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect. His ex-wife had left when the medical bills piled too high. She signed the divorce papers and walked out, leaving Carter alone with a sick child and an impossible choice: work more and leave Leah alone, or stay home and watch the debt consume them both. He chose the only option he could live with. He worked 3 jobs. He learned to cook spaghetti and chicken nuggets. He braided her hair every morning, even though his thick fingers fumbled with the tiny elastics. He became her father and her mother, her nurse and her friend. Her entire world compressed into one person, trying desperately not to break. Leah was small for her age, pale and fragile, but her spirit burned brighter than her body would allow. She loved to draw with colored pencils, filling page after page with families holding hands, houses with chimneys puffing smoke, dogs running in green yards. She loved to imagine stories about princesses who saved themselves and dragons who just wanted friends. She dreamed of a real family like the ones in storybooks, with a mommy and a daddy who both tucked her in at night. She carried a worn teddy bear named Muffin everywhere she went. Muffin's left eye was missing, replaced by a button Carter had sewn on with shaking hands. One night, after Leah cried herself to sleep, she talked to Muffin like he could hear her, telling him about the nice nurses, the scary machines, the days when Daddy looked so tired she wanted to hug him until he smiled again. When the doctors told Carter that Leah needed one final surgery, one last chance to live a normal life, He nodded and asked how much. The number broke him. It wasn't just money. It was impossible. The bank refused his loan application. His credit cards were maxed out. The insurance company denied coverage. A doctor named Oliver Bennett, kind but firm, told Carter the truth. If you don't have the money by tonight, we'll have to delay the surgery. And every day we wait, her chances get worse. Carter had walked into that hotel lobby not to attend a gala, but to meet a loan shark. The interest rate was criminal. The terms were brutal, but it was the only option left. He sat alone at a corner table, phone pressed to his ear, listening to Dr. Bennett's voice. If we don't operate soon, we'll miss the window. Carter's voice cracked. She'll be okay. I'll find the money. Just tell her to wait for me. He hung up and stared at the loan contract in front of him. His hand hovered over the signature line. He closed his eyes and thought of Leia's laugh. The way she called him Daddy in her sleepy morning voice. The way she said, "You can fix anything." That was when Adelaide Monroe walked past his table. She had just finished delivering a keynote speech at an investor conference upstairs. The applause had been polite. The questions had been sharp. Henry Cross had been in the audience, smirking, whispering to a colleague. She had overheard him say, "No one's going to marry her." She was born to stand next to balance sheets, not people. The words followed her into the elevator. They followed her into the lobby, and then she saw him. Carter Hayes hunched over a table, gripping a hospital bill, whispering into his phone like a man drowning. His eyes were desperate, exhausted, but not defeated. She recognized that look. It was the look of someone who refused to give up. Even when giving up made sense, Adelaide's mind raced. The board wanted her to find a partner to prove she was stable, marriageable, whole. Henry wanted her to crawl back. William wanted her to play the game, but she was tired of games. She was tired of pretending. She walked to Carter's table and set $10,000 in cash in front of him. "You need money," she said. "I need a husband for 1 week. It's a contract, nothing more." Carter stared at her, like she had just spoken a foreign language. "Excuse me? You heard me?" Adelaide said. Her voice was steady, clinical. "I'll pay you $10,000 to pretend to be my husband for 7 days. You show up at events. You smile. You play the role. At the end of the week, you take the money and leave." Carter's jaw tightened. "You think I'm for sale?" "I think you're out of options," Adelaide said. She nodded at the hospital bill. "And I think your daughter deserves better than a loan shark." Carter wanted to walk away. He wanted to tell this woman in her red dress and cold eyes exactly what he thought of people who bought other people. But then his phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Bennett. "Decision time. Carter, yes or no?" He looked at the cash. He looked at Adelaide. He looked at the loan contract with its blood-sucking terms. He thought of Leia lying in a hospital bed, clutching muffin, asking when Daddy was coming home. "1 week," he said quietly, "and then I'm gone." Adelaide's assistant, Farrah Quinn, appeared with a contract already printed. Carter read it quickly that he would pose as Adelaide's legal husband for 7 days. He would attend public events. He would memorize a fabricated love story. He would not reveal the arrangement to anyone. In return, he would receive $10,000 in cash, enough for Leia's surgery, enough to save her life. Carter signed. Adelaide signed. And just like that, a deal was struck. The next morning, Farrah escorted Carter to Adelaide's penthouse. The apartment occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower overlooking the city. The walls were floor, toe-ceiling windows that made Carter feel like he was suspended in midair. The furniture was designer, all clean lines and muted colors. Pieces that looked like they belonged in magazines rather than homes. The kitchen had marble countertops and appliances Carter couldn't identify. The wine collection, displayed in a temperature-controlled case, cost more than Carter's annual income. Original paintings hung on the walls. Abstract swirls of color that probably had meaning he would never understand. He stood in the entryway, his worn sneakers sinking into plush carpet, feeling like an intruder in a museum. Everything was beautiful, everything was expensive, and everything felt desperately, achingly empty. Adelaide laid out the rules. "From now on, you're Carter Monroe. You wear the clothes my stylist picks. You'll attend every event I attend. You'll act like you're in love with me. Can you do that? Carter met her eyes. I can act. Can you? Adelaide ignored the jab. She handed him off to Vivian Ross, a stylist with sharp eyes and sharper opinions. Vivian looked Carter up and down and sighed. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. They fitted him for suits, Italian leather shoes, silk ties. Carter felt like a mannequin being dressed for a window display. The shoes pinched. The ties strangled him, but when he looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. He looked like someone who belonged in Adelaide's world. Vivian smiled. You clean up well. Adelaide watched from across the room, arms folded, expression unreadable. She told herself this was just business, just a performance. But something about the way Carter stood straight back, unpolished, real, made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. The first public appearance was at Monroe Dynamics headquarters. The entire company buzzed with rumors when Adelaide arrived hand in hand with a mystery man. Employees whispered. Executives stared. Someone snapped a photo on their phone. Adelaide introduced him calmly. This is my husband, Carter. We had a private ceremony. We didn't want the media circus. Carter felt every eye in the room on him. Some people looked curious. Others looked skeptical. A few women glanced at him with something close to approval. He wanted to run, but then he saw the judgment in their faces, the same dismissive looks he'd received his whole life, and something shifted. He straightened his shoulders. He took Adelaide's hand and held it firmly. He played the part. To the outside world, they looked like a real couple. But inside, both of them were acting. Carter had one condition before the week could continue. I can't disappear from my daughter's life for 7 days. He told Adelaide that night. I need to see Leia. Adelaide frowned. That wasn't part of the contract. Then, tear it up. Carter said, I'm not abandoning my kid for money. Farah, who had been listening quietly, handed Adelaide a file. Inside was Leia's medical history, diagnosis, surgery schedules, a note from Dr. Bennett. Emotional stability is critical. Avoid unnecessary stress. Adelaide's sick. Fine, I'll meet her. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and lavender air freshener. Leia lay in bed, her small body barely making a dent in the blankets. She held Muffin the teddy bear with one missing eye. When Carter walked in, her face lit up. Daddy. Carter sat beside her and kissed her forehead. Hey, sweetheart, how are you feeling? Tired, Leia said. Then she noticed Adelaide standing in the doorway. Her eyes widened. Who's that? This is Adelaide, Carter said carefully. She's a friend of mine. Leia stared at Adelaide's red dress, her platinum hair, her designer shoes. You look like a princess, Leia said softly. But your eyes look sad. Adelaide froze. No one had ever said that to her. Not her parents, not Henry, not the 1,000 executives who called her ruthless and brilliant. This fragile little girl had seen through her in 5 seconds. I'm okay, Adelaide said, her voice quieter than usual. It's okay to be sad. Leia said, Daddy says it's okay to cry sometimes. Adelaide's throat tightened. She nodded and left the room before anyone could see her blink back tears. Dr. Bennett suggested that Leia stay at the penthouse for a few days to avoid unnecessary hospital exposure before her surgery. Carter agreed. Adelaide reluctantly did too. Leia's presence transformed the cold glass tower. She spread her coloring books across the marble coffee table, leaving crayon marks on surfaces that had never known such chaos. She asked Adelaide to help her color a picture of 3 people standing under an umbrella, carefully explaining that the tall one was Daddy, the small one was her, and the pretty one in the red dress was Miss Adelaide. She made Carter laugh by putting Muffin on Adelaide's expensive Italian couch and declaring him the king of the castle, complete with a crown made from a paper napkin. She asked Adelaide questions about everything. Why the wine bottles had corks, why the city lights twinkled, why grown-ups drank coffee that tasted yucky, whether Adelaide had ever climbed a tree, questions Adelaide had never been asked. Questions that made her see her own life through the eyes of someone who still believed in magic. Adelaide found herself smiling, then laughing, then sitting on the floor with Leia, trying to braid the girl's hair and failing. Miserably, her fingers, so skilled at signing contracts and typing emails, fumbled with the strands. Leia giggled. "You're not very good at this." "No," Adelaide admitted, her voice soft. "I'm not." "That's okay," Leia said, patting Adelaide's hand. "Daddy wasn't good at first either, but he practiced. You just need practice." They ordered pizza and ate it on the living room floor, watching cartoons. Adelaide couldn't remember the last time she had eaten anything that wasn't served on white china. She couldn't remember the last time she had laughed without calculating the social cost. Carter watched from the kitchen, arms folded, a small smile on his face. For the first time in years, he felt something close to peace. Monroe Dynamics hosted a weekend retreat for top shareholders at an exclusive beachside villa. William Grant insisted that Adelaide bring her mysterious husband to prove the relationship was real. Adelaide hesitated, worried about leaving Leia, but Dr. Bennett assured her that Leia would be closely monitored for the next 2 days. The villa was breathtaking. White stone walls reflected the afternoon sunday. Infinity pools seemed to pour directly into the ocean. Private beaches stretched for miles. So why'd it hurt to look at? Palm trees swayed in the breeze. Staff in crisp uniforms appeared and disappeared like ghosts carrying champagne and hors d'oeuvres on silver trays. The kind of place where the wealthy went to pretend they were normal to escape the pressures of empire building while still conducting business in swimsuits and sunglasses. Dinner was served on a terrace overlooking the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Candles flickered on every table. The smell of grilled seafood and expensive wine filled the air. Adelaide and Carter sat at the head table, flanked by board members and investors who smiled with their mouths but calculated with their eyes. And to Adelaide's horror, Henry Cross. He had arrived fashionably late, making an entrance, drawing every eye in the room. He wore a white linen suit and a smile that made Adelaide's skin crawl. Henry smiled at Carter like a shark circling prey. All teeth and menace dressed up his charm. "So, Carter, what do you do for a living?" "I fix things," Carter said simply. "Ow, blue collar." "Interesting." Henry swirled his wine. The motion deliberate, designed to make Carter feel small. "Where did you two meet?" Adelaide opened her mouth, ready to recite the story. Farah had scripted the one they had rehearsed 3 times that morning. But Carter spoke first, his voice steady, his eyes meeting Henry's without flinching at her office. "I was repairing a printer. She walked by. I made her laugh. That was it." Henry raised an eyebrow. "Romantic. And what's her favorite food?" Carter didn't hesitate. "She doesn't have one. She hates dinners where people only talk about stock prices and quarterly earnings. She'd rather eat pizza on the floor." Adelaide blinked. That was true. How did he know that? Henry pressed harder. "What's her bedtime routine?" "She checks her email twice before bed, even though her assistant already checked it. She can't sleep unless she knows everything's handled." Adelaide stared at him. He had been watching her, really watching her. Not the CEO, not the Ice Queen. Her. Henry's smile faded. He changed the subject. That night, the villa staff assigned Adelaide and Carter to a shared suite. 1 king-size bed, a balcony overlooking the ocean. Carter grabbed a pillow and moved to the couch. "I'll sleep here." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," Carter said firmly. "This is a job, not a relationship," Adelaide nodded. But as the hours passed and sleep refused to come, she found herself speaking into the darkness. "Henry left me at the altar," she said quietly. In front of everyone, he said, "I didn't know how to love." Carter was silent for a moment. Then he said, "My ex-wife left me when Leia got sick."
Adelaide felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't know how to keep going. I've spent my whole life being strong and I'm so tired." Carter sat up. He didn't cross the room. He didn't touch her. But his voice was steady, kind. "You don't have to be strong with me. Just this once. Let yourself be tired." Adelaide cried. For the first time in years, she let herself break. And Carter sat in the darkness, listening, not judging, just present. Back in the city, William Grant and Henry Cross met in a private club, the kind of place with leather chairs, cigar, smoke, and conversations that never made it into official minutes. They were both furious. Adelaide's sudden marriage had derailed their plans. William feared losing control of the company he had helped build. Henry couldn't stand the idea of Adelaide loving someone else, of her choosing a nobody over him. They hired a private investigator, a man who specialized in finding dirt on people who thought they were clean. Within 48 hours, they had Carter's financial records spread across William's desk. They had Leia's medical history, every diagnosis, every hospital visit, every unpaid bill. They had the loan shark contract Carter had almost signed with its criminal interest rates and brutal terms. They had photos of Carter leaving his cramped apartment, delivering packages in the rain, fixing machines in office buildings where he was treated like furniture. They had everything they needed to destroy him, to paint him as a desperate man who had sold himself to a lonely CEO for money, to make Adelaide look like a fool. An anonymous article appeared online. Billionaire CEO marries broke repairman love or PR stunt. The article was brutal. It called Carter a gold digger. It questioned his motives. It insinuated that Adelaide had staged the entire relationship to salvage her image after Henry's betrayal. Monroe Dynamics stock dropped 3 points. The board panicked. Staged the entire relationship to salvage her image after Henry's betrayal. Monroe Dynamics stock dropped 3 points. The board panicked. William called an emergency meeting. In a closed-door session, William confronted Adelaide. You need to clarify this relationship. If you don't, the board will question your judgment and your position. What do you want me to do? Adelaide asked coldly. Call Carter a temporary PR consultant. Say it was a branding experiment that went wrong. Cut him loose. Adelaide said nothing. She looked around the table. These were people she had worked with for years, people she had trusted. And now they wanted her to throw Carter under the bus to save stock prices. She didn't answer. She left the room in silence. Under mounting pressure, Adelaide signed an internal memo. It described Carter as a temporary participant in a public relations initiative. It was clinical, cold, it protected the company. William leaked the memo. Carter found out when he overheard a conversation at Monroe Dynamics. He had come to drop off some documents for Adelaide. 2 executives were talking in the hallway. Did you hear? The guy's just a hired actor. Adelaide paid him to play husband for the cameras. Carter's blood turned to ice. He walked straight to Adelaide's office and shut the door. Is it true? He asked. Adelaide looked up, startled. Is what true? That I'm just a prop, a hired actor, a public relations initiative. Her silence was answer enough. I needed to protect the company, she said weakly. The board was threatening to remove me. Carter laughed bitterly. And I was the easiest thing to sacrifice. That's not fair. Fair? Carter's voice shook. I thought maybe this was becoming real. I thought you actually saw me. But you're just like everyone else. I'm invisible to you. Unless I'm useful. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Carter, wait. Thanks for the money, he said without turning around. Leia's surgery is paid for. That's all that mattered, right? He left. The door closed, and Adelaide stood alone in her glass office. Surrounded by everything she had built, feeling emptier than she had ever felt in her life. Leia asked Carter that night, why isn't Miss Adelaide coming over? She's busy, sweetheart. Did I do something wrong? Carter's heart broke. No, you didn't do anything wrong. But Farah told Adelaide what Leia had said, and Adelaide realized with horrifying clarity that she had become the kind of person she hated.